In 1726, Mary Toft, an Englishwoman, claiming to give birth to rabbits. However, suspicions arose when inconsistencies were noted in the rabbit births.
History is an intricate tapestry woven from millions of stories, events, and occurrences. It encompasses moments of grandeur, tragedy, and downright bizarre incidents. While some historical facts are inspiring and enlightening, others that are totally unsettling are often sanitized. So, what truth lies behind the iconic figures and celebrated events? Lie hidden stories of brutality, exploitation, and unimaginable suffering. How have these things changed over the years? Join us as we uncover 20 historical facts that will disturb you. Number 20. The Salem Witch Trial. From Hocus Pocus to the chilling adventures of Sabrina, it's clear that people love witches. In fact, witches are the most popular adult Halloween costume year after year. But those frivolous and fanciful witches we know today, cackling in black garb and pointy hats with broomsticks in hand, have evolved a great deal over the past several centuries. More than 300 years ago, it was a felony to practice witchcraft in the American colonies, defined by English law as acting with magical powers bestowed by the devil. But it wasn't until legal failings, mass paranoia, and Puritan religious and societal rules converged against a backdrop of economic and political uncertainty that the most horrifying witch hunt against innocent people occurred in colonial Massachusetts. During the Salem witch trials of 1692, more than 200 people were accused of practicing witchcraft. 20 of those people were executed, most by hanging. One man was pressed to death under heavy stones, the only such state-sanctioned execution of its kind. Dozens suffered under inhumane conditions as they waited in jail for months without trials. Many of the imprisoned were also tortured, and at least one died in jail before the hysteria abated in 1693. So much of the tragedy of the Salem witch trials comes down to the failure of the court and the laws during that time. Laws that made such things as visions, dreams, and even the testimony of spirits permissible evidence. And a court that accepted accusations so flimsy they would seem laughable today if they weren't so horrifyingly unjust. The Salem witch trials occurred just as Europe's witchcraft craze from the 14th to 17th centuries was winding down, where an estimated tens of thousands of European witches, mostly women, were executed. The chilling mayhem unfolded during the winter of 1692 in Salem Village, now the town of Danvers, Massachusetts, when 3 girls allegedly having strange visions and fits were diagnosed with bewitchment by a doctor. Many modern theories suggest the girls were suffering from epilepsy, boredom, child mistreatment, mental illness, or even a disease brought on by eating rye infected with fungus. Sheer vindictiveness is now considered a plausible explanation as well. The girls blamed their odd behavior on 3 women considered social outcasts, including Tituba, a slave, whose confession may have been coerced. Soon, a wave of witchcraft allegations throughout the year swept up more than 200 accused witches, including at least 1 child. Local magistrates questioned the accused and determined whether any charges were to be brought against them. As paranoia spread, residents of Salem soon found themselves facing accusations from friends, neighbors, and families. Bearing false witness and committing perjury were considered felonies in Salem. Under normal conditions, those convicted of such charges were prosecuted in public forums. During the witch trials, however, individuals convicted of perjury could save themselves from public humiliation by accusing their neighbors. The accused witches were largely deprived of the rights to which they should have been entitled under English common law. While this was a total injustice, the next person on our list could at least blame his actions on love. So what did love make this person do? Stay tuned and let's reveal that. Number 19. Pedro the Just or Pedro the Cruel. Pedro of Portugal, also known as Pedro the Just or Pedro the Cruel, is a figure shrouded in controversy. His reputation varies greatly depending on perspective, despite his royal status. Pedro's tumultuous life was marked by a high-profile affair with Inés de Castro, his wife's lady-in-waiting. Their relationship, widely known and deeply passionate, sparked significant political tension. Inés, of Castilian noble descent, was perceived as a threat to existing power dynamics. To prevent a potential alliance with Castile through Inés, Pedro's father, King Afonso IV, gave an order that ended her life in 1355. Pedro was consumed by grief following Inez's tragic death, which was carried out at his father's command. Undeterred, his devotion to Inez only intensified. Upon ascending to the throne, Pedro did the most bizarre thing. He declared that he and Inez had been secretly married, making her the rightful queen of Portugal. That wasn't the end of his unexplainable actions, though. In a dramatic and unprecedented gesture, Pedro allegedly exhumed Inez's body, dressed her in royal attire, and placed her on a throne. He then commanded the court and nobility to pay homage to her as their queen, kissing the hand of the deceased. This extreme demonstration of love remains one of the most enduring and haunting tales in history. Number 18. Toxic green dye. Every coin has two sides, a stick has two ends, and a magnet has two opposite poles, just like the color green, which over the centuries has shown its dual symbolism, life and death. The color green is associated with vegetation, nature, hope, harmony, freedom, and ecology. A shade of green mixed with blue, for instance mint, gives off a feeling of freshness, satisfaction, and relaxation. The color of greenery is a reflection of the renewal of life, a symbol of nature's everlasting bounty. The color green became most popular in the 19th century. It was the time it became a fashionable, even dominant color among high society. European noblewomen, in love with the color, proudly wore richly ornamented dresses in its various shades. But green dominated more than textiles. It also became the most fashionable color for interior design, decorative items, tableware, and various other home accessories. Unfortunately, this trend turned out to be deadly for the color's enthusiasts. The problem was that the dyes used to dye fibers and fabrics contained toxic and poisonous substances. The two most commonly used chemicals at that time were Scheele's green and Paris green. Research conducted in 1890 confirmed that approximately 20% of textile articles contained large doses of these substances. One sample of green-dyed muslin was found to contain over 4 grams of Scheele's green per square meter of material. Initially, no one even suspected the causes behind frequent fainting, health problems, and the growing number of deaths among the aristocracy. It all started in 1775 when a chemist and pharmacist of Swedish origin, Carl Wilhelm Scheele, invented a miraculous pigment of an amazing green color. It was created by combining copper sulfate, potassium carbonate, and arsenic oxide, so it contained poison. Unfortunately, the visual effect of this invention was stunning. The new poisonous dye had such a beautiful, unusual color that it immediately became the most desired fashion trend, referred to as Schloss green or Scheele's green. The world has since moved on from this fatal green mistake. Number 17. Stained church glass. Stained glass windows in old churches are awe-inspiring, with their intricate depictions of biblical scenes. However, the creation of these beautiful artworks had a dark secret. The process involved adding a unique ingredient to the mix: urine. Metallic oxides were combined with urine, enhancing the fusion with glass during the firing process. So the next time you admire stained glass, remember the unsavory element used in its creation. Believe it or not, that bit of urine played a big role in bringing out those deep, vibrant colors we all love. It might sound weird, but it just goes to show how far those old craftsmen were willing to go for the sake of stunning art. They really knew their stuff, mixing the odd with the ordinary to make something extraordinary for everyone to enjoy, especially in those quiet church moments. Ketchup as medicine. Tomato ketchup has been an inseparable part of our day-to-day meals. Can you imagine relishing those crispy fries or enjoying those crunchy pakoras without a bowl of tomato ketchup? The answer is no, we are sure. But do you know that this sweet sour sauce was first invented as medication and not as a condiment? The history of ketchup is hard to pin down. However, food experts and scholars believe that its origin can be traced back to China, wherein it was known as gay the cup or ketchup, which was basically a fish sauce. This fermented sauce was made from fish innards and soybeans. Also, it was salty and had a pungent smell. In the 1830s, tomato ketchup used to be sold as a medicine, claiming to cure ailments like diarrhea, indigestion, and jaundice. The idea was first proposed by Dr. John Cook Bennett, an American physician in 1834, who is said to sell the recipe later in the form of tomato pills, however, once Dr. Bennett's pills hit the market, claiming medicinal properties of tomatoes, brigades of copycats began selling their own tomato-based pills, initiating a tomato pill war. Unfortunately, some of these copycats simply sold laxatives with no trace of tomatoes. They also made wild claims that their pills could cure everything from scurvy, a condition caused by vitamin C deficiency, to brittle bones. Due to these false claims, the ketchup medicine empire collapsed in 1850. The end of tomato pills didn't mean that the product as a whole went away, though. Decades later, in 1876, Henry Heinz, an American entrepreneur, came up with today's version of tomato ketchup by creating it with ripe tomatoes, distilled vinegar, brown sugar, salt, and a variety of spices. This recipe gained traction as a non-medicinal condiment and was first introduced as catsup in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Number 15. Martin Cooney's incubators. Incubators play a crucial role in neonatal medicine today, saving the lives of premature babies. However, their introduction wasn't without controversy. Martin Cooney's approach was as unorthodox as it was unsettling. He funded his work by exhibiting premature children in incubators at Coney Island, drawing in curious crowds. Cooney's unconventional method might have saved lives, but it was certainly eerie. Despite the weirdness and the ethical eyebrow raisers, Cooney's exhibitions actually did a lot of good. They got people talking about how incubators could help premature babies. By showing off these tiny tots, he wasn't just pulling in funds, he was also teaching everyone about the special care these little ones needed. Sure, it was controversial, but Cooney's oddball approach helped make incubators a normal part of hospital care, totally changing the game for at-risk newborns and proving that sometimes innovation starts in the strangest ways. Number 14. Edison's Eerie Dolls. One of the earliest known milestones in recorded history sits nestled in an 18-inch doll. Inventor Thomas Edison embedded small phonographs inside the metal torsos of thousands of dolls that talked or played fragments of nursery rhymes, including Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. The Edison talking dolls, intended for mass production in 1890, are among the earliest known audio entertainment records. But much like the homeless American Girl doll, the toy was a major flop. The public reacted as one does when confronted with a grandmother's massive doll collection. You averted your eyes in fear. After 6 weeks into production, the dolls were deemed too scary and pulled from the market, the New York Times reported, and it's not hard to hear why. The doll recordings hiss nursery rhymes in a way that doesn't make the doll an ideal bedtime companion. In particular, a doll's rendition of Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, an English bedtime prayer, is nightmare fuel. Edison dolls must have inspired Stephen King. Edison's dolls might be eerie, but the next one on our list is nerve-wracking. Number 13. H. Holmes Murder Hotel. The 1893 World's Fair in Chicago was known at the time as the Columbian Exposition, which celebrated the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's arrival in the Americas. The enormous exhibition featured many wondrous exhibits, including the United States' first gas-powered motor car, the Daimler quadricycle, and a 1,500-pound statue of the Venus de Milo made of chocolate. However, the World's Fair became better known for a structure that was more gruesome than organizers could have imagined, the so-called murder castle of H. Holmes, America's first documented serial hitman. Holmes, a masterful and charismatic con artist, had swindled money from his drugstore employers. He purchased an empty lot in the Englewood neighborhood of Chicago and built a labyrinthine structure with shops on the first floor and small apartments above. This edifice became known as Holmes's booby-trapped castle. The space featured soundproof rooms, secret passages, and a disorienting maze of hallways and staircases. The rooms were also allegedly outfitted with trapdoors over chutes that dropped Holmes's unsuspecting victims to the building's basement. The basement was a macabre facility of acid vats, pits of quicklime, and a crematorium, which the hitman used to finish off his victims. Holmes was involved in a variety of fraud schemes, and it was actually his involvement in a horse swindle in Texas that led police to arrest him in Boston in 1894. Investigators soon began to suspect him of taking the life of his scammer associate Benjamin Pittersell in an insurance scheme, then taking the lives of 3 of Pittersell's children, who were roughly 7 to 14 years old, in an attempt to cover it up. Spooky. Number 12. Fear of premature burial. The fear of being buried alive, or taphophobia, remains a significant concern for a number of individuals. In previous centuries, however, reports of live burials were frequently promulgated in the media, fostering an industry focused around the manufacturing and selling of security coffins, which either facilitated egress or enabled the recently buried to alert those on the surface to their plight. Holding mortuaries with resuscitation facilities were also established mainly in continental Europe to permit close observation of the recently deceased until definitive signs of putrefaction had developed. Underpinning much of this panic was the inability of medical practitioners to definitely diagnose death. This fear led to one of the creepiest categories of invention: coffin alarms. There were a series of inventions in the 19th century which would aid someone who was buried alive to escape, breathe, and signal for help. Number 11. The legacy of Marie Curie. Marie Curie, a notable scientist who won Nobel Prizes in both physics and chemistry alongside her husband Pierre. Marie Curie was a literal example of falling victim to one's success. During the First World War, Marie Curie worked to develop small, mobile X-ray units that could be used to diagnose injuries near the battlefront. As director of the Red Cross Radiological Service, she toured Paris, asking for money, supplies, and vehicles which could be converted. In October 1914, the first machines, known as Petites Curies, were ready, and Marie set off to the front. She worked with her daughter Irene, then aged 17, at casualty clearing stations close to the front line, X-raying wounded men to locate fractures, bullets, and shrapnel. The technology Marie Curie developed for the Petites Curies is similar to that used today in the fluoroscopy machine at our Hampstead Hospice. A powerful X-ray machine, it allows doctors to examine moving images in the body, such as the pumping action of the heart or the motion of swallowing. But these achievements would come at a personal cost, as Marie Curie's health slowly started to decline. On the 4th of July 1934, at the Salem Sanatorium in Passy, France, at the age of 66, Marie Curie died. The cause of her death was given as aplastic pernicious anemia, a condition she developed after years of exposure to radiation through her work. Do you know Marie Curie wasn't the only one who suffered from this element? Well, before we delve into that, let's delve into the stories of other women who embraced creativity on a whole new level. Number 10. Depression-era clothing. Times were turbulent for the significant majority of Canadians and Americans in the first half of the 20th century, especially during the Great Depression that followed the infamous stock market crash of 1929. While some women were able to afford the newest fashions, most women, especially those in more rural areas, had to make do with what little they could afford and recycle what they had. As early as the late 1800s, flour and animal feed began to be sold in rough fabric sacks rather than wooden barrels. These bags were often recycled into rags and towels. By 1910, some goods like flour and sugar were packaged in lighter, softer cotton sacks, and poorer women creatively recycled these cotton sacks into things like undergarments, bed sheets, and curtains. Unfortunately, wearing clothing made from potato sacks often carried a stigma reflecting the wearer's poverty. Despite the creative reuse of materials, such garments were a stark symbol of the era's economic struggle. Number 9. The vanished colony of Roanoke. In 1587, a small colony was founded on an island off the eastern coast of North America. The settlement would have been the first permanent English colony in the New World, had the settlers not disappeared owing to unknown circumstances. The lost colony of Roanoke is one of the most notorious mysteries in American history. The cryptic clues left at the abandoned settlement and the lack of any concrete evidence make it the focus of wild speculation and theories. In the settlement's difficult founding year, its mayor, John White, left for England to request resources and manpower. He returned 3 years later only to find the settlement empty. his wife, child, and grandchild, the first English child born in the Americas, having vanished. The word Croatoan and the letters CRO carved into trees within the colony's borders were the only signs pointing to an explanation. Despite the clues, the returning crew was unable to search for the missing colonists. A storm approached just as they came upon the desolate settlement, forcing them to turn back for England. On the basis of the mysterious tree carving, the nearby Croatoan island, now known as Hatteras Island, is the location to which many believe the colonists moved. At the time of the colony's founding, the Hatteras Indians occupied the island, and a popular theory supposes that the colonists joined the group of Native Americans to overcome their lack of resources and knowledge of the land. A supposed piece of evidence for this claim is the existence of carvings in stones that were purportedly made by Eleanor Dare, the daughter of John White. These stones, often called the Dare stones, contain written stories that tell the fates of the colonists and personal anecdotes from Dare to her father. Though they are largely believed to be a hoax and forgery, there is some academic belief that at least one of the stones may be authentic. Despite this evidence and many other theories, it is likely that no definitive answer to the mystery of the colonists' disappearance will ever be found. Number 8. Post-mortem photography. This is definitely one of the creepiest things in history. Long before photography became very popular, post-mortem photography was very popular in the 1900s, especially in Europe and America. Among post-mortem photographs, there are a large number of photographs of deceased children, because at that time, many children died in infancy. These photographs were often taken with the deceased person on their deathbed or in a coffin, giving the impression that they are asleep. To take this to a whole new level of creepiness, there are staged photographs where the deceased person is standing or sitting thanks to thanatopraxy and other tools which can give the impression that the person is still alive. The deceased were often surrounded by their living family. A deceased baby may be sitting on its mother's lap, for example. For the family, the post-mortem portrait was a way of remembering the person and their life and a way of paying tribute to them. In some cases, it was also a way to gather around the deceased person one last time. It could also be a way of accepting death. But also, for some people, the photograph could give the impression that the person was still alive. It was common in post-mortem photography to have the eyes and cheeks colored during the development to give the impression that the person is still alive. This impression, the fact that the person who's right in front of us is actually dead, is really strange and very creepy. Number 7. Ice cream for morale during wartime. Okay, time for a bit of fun. It may seem obvious that coffee and tobacco are staples for many serving in the military. But did you know ice cream has been a morale booster since World War I? This comfort food produces a physiological response that makes those who eat the frozen treat subconsciously think about calming memories, such as eating the dessert as a child. It's particularly fulfilling for those in the military who must sometimes endure long deployments without the comforts of home. During World War I, alcohol was banned on Navy ships, which meant that higher-ranking officers had to come up with a way to keep their men happy. The solution was something a little sweeter than alcohol: ice cream. Holding ice cream on board a Navy ship proved difficult, but those on board took the task quite seriously. They transformed at least one of the Army's refrigerated barges into an ice cream factory. The barge was capable of producing 10 gallons of ice cream every 7 minutes and could store up to 2,000 gallons of the frozen treat. A significant way to showcase how important the military considers the morals of the soldiers. Honestly, turning a barge into an ice cream factory. Now that's commitment. It's not just about giving out ice cream, it's about bringing a slice of home to the seas. Turns out, a scoop of vanilla could be just as crucial as any comfort letter from back home. Number 6. The radium girls. Radium had been discovered just 20 years earlier by French physicists Marie Curie and Pierre Curie, and its properties were not well known. Because it had been used successfully in the treatment of cancer, many considered radium a miracle element, and a variety of commercial products were manufactured in which radium was an ingredient, including toothpaste and cosmetics. The women hired to paint dials came to be known as ghost girls, because the radium dust to which they were exposed daily made their clothes, hair, and skin literally glow. Many of the women wore their best dresses on the job so the fabric would shine brilliantly when they went dancing after work. Some even applied the paint to their teeth because it gave them radiant smiles. What's more, the painters ingested the radioactive substance as part of their job. Because some of the watch dials on which they worked were extremely small, they were instructed to use their lips to bring their paintbrushes to a fine point. It wasn't long before the radium girls began to experience the physical ravages of their exposure. Among the first was Amelia Molly Maggia, who painted watches for the Radium Luminous Materials Corp. In Orange, New Jersey. Maggia's first symptom was a toothache, which required the removal of the tooth. Soon the tooth next to it also had to be extracted. Painful ulcers, bleeding and full of pus, developed where the teeth had been. The mysterious malady spread throughout Maggia's mouth and lower jaw, which had to be removed, then into other parts of her body. Maggia died on September 12, 1922, of a massive hemorrhage. Doctors were puzzled as to the cause of her condition, and, oddly, they determined that she had died of syphilis. It wasn't long before others started showing the same symptoms, while the public continued to perceive radium as safe. A finding later concluded that radium is in fact unsafe. Although the factories tried to discredit this, the radium girls fought back in order to keep others safe. The legacy of the radium girls can't be understated. Their case was among the first in which a company was held responsible for the health and safety of its employees, and it led to a variety of reforms, as well as to the creation of the United States Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Number 5. Pharaoh Pepi II and flies. Pharaoh Pepi II of ancient Egypt ruled for a remarkably long period, anywhere from 64 to 94 years. However, his reign had a peculiar quirk, an intense hatred of flies. To avoid these pesky insects, Pepi II had a unique method. He kept naked slaves near him, covering them in honey from head to toe. These honey-covered slaves served as bait for flies and other bothersome bugs. It was a bizarre solution to an age-old problem. Well, nobody really likes flies after all, and this shows the lengths wealthy people would go to prevent having flies around. This extreme method highlights not only the lengths to which Pepi was willing to go to ensure his comfort, but also the vast power disparity in ancient Egyptian society. Such an unusual practice underlines the often overlooked aspects of daily life for royals and their servants. Furthermore, it paints a vivid picture of the inventive, albeit cruel, strategies employed by those in power to resolve what might seem like minor annoyances to us today, but were major disturbances in their time. While the honey-covered slaves saved Pepi II from flies, there are claims that a war hero started the climate change journey in an unexpected way. So how did he do it? Let's delve into that. Number 4. Genghis Khan's environmental. In 1206 AD, Genghis Khan began the Mongol invasion, a horse-crazed bow-wielding military force that swept through much of modern-day Asia into the Middle East and Eastern Europe. But aside from creating the world's largest empire, the Mongol invasion had another global impact that has remained hidden in history. Genghis Khan and his empire, which lasted nearly 2 centuries, actually cooled the earth. It's been said that it's a common misconception that the human impact on climate began with the large-scale burning of coal and oil in the industrial era. Actually, humans started to influence the environment thousands of years ago by changing the vegetation cover of the Earth's landscapes when we cleared forests for agriculture. But how did Genghis Khan force a change? The answer to how this happened can be told in one word: reforestation. When the Mongol hordes invaded Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, they left behind a massive body count, depopulating many regions. With less people, large swathes of cultivated fields eventually returned to forests, absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Number 3. Human skin books. There are few things more evocative to book lovers than an old room full of leather-bound tomes, though it depends on where the leather came from. It might sound like something out of a horror novel, but books bound in human skin do exist, albeit rarely. One of the most infamous examples involves an anatomy book bound in the skin of William Burke. Burke, infamous for his role in the Burke and Hare controversy, was convicted of taking the lives of 16 people in the 19th century to sell their corpses for medical research. After his capture, Burke's skin was used to bind a book containing anatomy lectures related to the very crimes that funded his gruesome activities. This macabre practice, while rare, underscores the disturbing intersections between human history and medical research. The use of human skin in bookbinding evokes a chilling reminder of the lengths to which people have gone in the name of science and the darker aspects of historical practices. Number 2. Soldiers' teeth dentures. In bygone eras, losing teeth was a frequent issue, and the solutions available were quite grim. Imagine losing a tooth and needing a replacement in the 1800s. Today, we have access to advanced dental care, but back then, it was a different story. People resorted to unconventional methods, such as using the teeth of the deceased. Waterloo teeth, as they were known, described teeth extracted from dead soldiers on the battlefield. Others procured teeth directly from the mouths of the less fortunate, resulting in a gruesome dental history. The increasing consumption of sugar in Europe led to a surge in dental issues, and those who could afford them sought these gruesome dentures as a solution. The wealthy, who indulged in sugary treats and had access to such luxuries, found these teeth to be a rather grim status symbol. History tells different tales, but the next person on our list literally forced herself into the history book. So what did she do? Let's find out. Number 1. The rabbit birth hoax. Sometimes the tales history tells us are nothing but bizarre. Mary Toft's story is one of the strangest. Living in Godalming, Surrey in 1726, Mary became infamous for supposedly giving birth to rabbits instead of human babies. After a miscarriage, Mary began experiencing unusual deliveries, astonishing local doctors with rabbit parts. Even her family doctor was convinced something extraordinary was happening. However, as two different species cannot reproduce, Mary's case brought suspicions. Surgeon John Howard investigated, observing Mary over several weeks as she continued to deliver rabbit parts. His findings reached prominent doctors and King George I's court, sparking skepticism. Despite doubts, King George's court surgeon believed in the authenticity of Mary's case. The story spread, but soon it was revealed that Mary had been inserting rabbit parts into herself. The exact reason for her actions remains unknown. After numerous examinations and experiments, the deception was exposed. Mary's attempt to gain attention led to intense scrutiny, and she eventually admitted to the hoax. A bizarre action that led to her being an object of ridicule. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Also check out another interesting video by clicking on the video shown on your screen. See you on the other side.